Hello and welcome to the Sovereign Frequency channel. I'm really glad you're here today. And I want to say that slowly because this channel isn't designed to be consumed quickly. If you're here, it's likely because something in your life has begun to feel repetitive. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that demands immediate action, but in a quieter way, a way that shows up when the day ends and you ask yourself, is this all just going to repeat again tomorrow? If that question has crossed your mind, even briefly, this video is for you. For many people, the feeling starts quietly. The days keep moving, the responsibilities stay the same. Life appears stable from the outside, but internally, something feels out of sync. You may not hate your life, you may not want to escape it, and that's what makes this feeling so confusing, because nothing is wrong enough to justify how you feel, yet nothing feels quite right either. This isn't a crisis, it's a signal. In the last transmission, we talked about invisible systems, not conspiracies, not villains, just inherited structures, expectations, routines, definitions of success that quietly shape how we live. Most of us never consciously choose them. We simply step into them. And for a long time that works until one day it doesn't. Not because the system suddenly breaks, but because you begin to outgrow it. What I want to talk about today isn't the system itself. It's what it feels like to live inside it once awareness begins. Because that feeling has a shape. It feels like repetition. Like motion without direction, like effort without progression. You wake up, you move through the day, you do what's expected, and then you do it again. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, just repetitive enough to slowly drain meaning. This video isn't about fixing your life. It's not about motivation. And it's not about radical change. It's about understanding why life can start to feel like a loop and what that feeling is actually asking of you. No pressure, no urgency, just clarity. A loop never announces itself. It doesn't arrive as a crisis. It doesn't break anything. It doesn't demand your attention. It arrives quietly. So quietly, in fact, that most people don't realize it's there until years have passed. There's no single moment you can point to and say, this is when my life became repetitive, because the loop doesn't interrupt your life. It absorbs it. The loop is built from rhythm. You wake up, you move into responsibility, you handle what needs to be handled, not because you chose it consciously, but because it's what comes next. At night, you distract yourself. Noise replaces reflection, stimulation replaces presence, then you sleep. And the next day begins exactly where the last one left off. This isn't chaos, it's order without direction. One of the strangest effects of the loop is how it alters your sense of time. Weeks blur together. Months pass quickly. Milestones arrive and feel strangely hollow. Not because nothing is happening, but because nothing new is happening internally. Your calendar changes. Your responsibilities shift. But you remain the same version of yourself. Responding to the same pressures, chasing the same validations, managing the same emotional patterns. Time accelerates when awareness stagnates. Here's the distinction that matters most. A loop is movement without evolution. Your life keeps going forward, but your sense of self stays in the same place. You gain experience, but not clarity. You gain stability, but not direction. You gain momentum, but not meaning. This is why the loop is so disorienting, because it looks like progress, but it doesn't feel like growth. Most people misdiagnose the loop. They call it boredom, they call it laziness, they call it a lack of discipline, so they try to fix themselves, they optimize routines, they add structure, they push harder, but the loop doesn't come from lack of effort. It comes from lack of authorship. You're moving, but you're not choosing, and effort without choice eventually becomes exhaustion. This is the simplest way to understand it. The loop is repetition without meaning, not because meaning is impossible, but because it's never asked for. When life becomes a series of inherited motions, meaning quietly drains away. And what replaces it is a strange kind of numb momentum. You're not stuck, you're unconsciously continuing. And the moment you recognize that distinction, the loop weakens. One of the reasons the loop is so unsettling is because it doesn't announce itself as a thought. It arrives as a feeling, a tightness, a dull restlessness, a quiet sense that something is off, even if you can't explain why. Your mind may tell you everything is fine, but your body knows something isn't aligned. This isn't imagination, and it isn't weakness, it's biology. Human beings are wired for orientation, for movement towards something. When that orientation disappears, the nervous system feels it long before the intellect does. The loop often disguises itself as safety. Predictable routines, known responsibilities, familiar outcomes. On the surface, this feels stable, but stability without direction eventually becomes confinement. The nervous system relaxes temporarily, but the deeper self begins to wither. Safety was never meant to replace meaning, it was meant to support it. When predictability becomes the goal instead of the foundation, life slowly flattens. Here's something rarely explained clearly. The loop doesn't calm the nervous system long term, it agitates it. Because beneath routine, the body is asking a deeper question. Where is this going? When there's no answer, low-grade anxiety forms. Not panic, not fear, just a constant hum beneath the surface. This is why people in loops often feel tired but wired, busy but restless, stable but uneasy. Your system isn't broken, it's understimulated in the wrong way. Another reason the loop feels wrong is because your inner reference point stops updating. You're still responding to the same expectations, still measuring success the same way, still orienting your life around definitions that may no longer fit. But you've changed, quietly, internally. The loop doesn't account for inner evolution, so when growth happens on the inside but life stays the same on the outside, friction forms. That friction is experienced as dissatisfaction. Not because life is wrong, but because it's outdated. Because this discomfort is hard to name, most people label it something simple, boredom. But boredom is just the surface expression. What's actually happening is meaning starvation. Your actions are no longer connected to a deeper why. So the mind grows restless, the body grows tired, and motivation collapses, not because you're lazy, but because the signal chain is broken. Effort without meaning feels pointless. Here's the most important thing to understand. The discomfort you feel in the loop is not a flaw, it's feedback. It's the part of you that refuses to go numb. It's awareness pressing gently against routine. The loop feels wrong because something in you is ready for authorship. Not rebellion, not escape, just conscious participation. This discomfort isn't asking you to destroy your life. It's asking you to wake up inside it. So if the loop feels wrong, it's not because something has gone wrong. It's because something has changed. And the next question becomes unavoidable. If the loop isn't caused by laziness, boredom, or failure, then what is creating it? That's what we need to understand next. So what actually creates the loop? Here it is, clean and simple. Your outer life changes, but your inner reference point doesn't. New days, new tasks, new responsibilities, but the same emotional patterns, the same self-definition, the same measuring system. You may change jobs, move cities, enter relationships, hit milestones, still feel like you're living the same year over and over, because the loop isn't built from events, it's built from unconscious repetition. A loop forms when life keeps moving, but you remain oriented by the same invisible compass. Most people assume they're living their own lives, but what they're often living is an inherited structure, a set of defaults about what matters, what success looks like, what a good life is supposed to be. And the strange thing is, these defaults can produce results. They can create stability, income, respect, a life that looks correct. But correctness isn't the same as truth. If your internal compass points toward external approval, your life will keep looping, even as it advances, because the compass is pulling you toward the same destination, validation. And validation is never an end point, it's a treadmill. The loop is usually powered by 4 invisible drivers, not dramatic forces, quiet ones. The first is expectation. You keep meeting expectations that were never yours. The second is identity. You keep performing a version of yourself that no longer matches who you are becoming. The third is avoidance. You stay busy to avoid stillness, because stillness brings questions. And the fourth is measurement. You measure your life with numbers that have nothing to do with meaning. And when your life is driven by expectation, identity, avoidance, and external measurement, you can be incredibly productive and still be moving in circles. This is why making a change often doesn't work. People change scenery, new job, new city, new relationship, new routine. But the inner operating system stays the same compulsions, same fears, same need to prove, same habit of postponing truth. So the loop simply relocates. It looks new for a while, then it becomes familiar again, because the loop isn't in the location, it's in the orientation. If your internal compass hasn't changed, your life will keep producing the same shape, no matter where you go. Here's another way to understand it. The loop freezes the self, not because you stop growing biologically or mentally, but because your life becomes so filled with performance that you never integrate experience into wisdom. You do, you handle, you cope, you repeat, but you rarely pause long enough to ask, what is this teaching me? What is this costing me? What am I becoming? So, experiences stack up, but the self doesn't update. You become skilled at functioning, but disconnected from direction. That's the frozen self effect. This is where many people finally understand what's happening. They think they need time. They think they need a new routine. They think they need better motivation. But the loop isn't a time management problem. It's a meaning problem. Meaning isn't something you find. Meaning is what happens when your actions connect to a consciously chosen why. And when that connection is missing, even a full life feels empty. You can fill every hour and still feel hollow. Because fullness is not the same as purpose. So what breaks the loop at its root? Not change, authorship. The loop ends when you begin making choices from a consciously chosen inner reference point, not the crowd's definition of success, Not your old identity's need to prove, not the fear of being judged, but your own internal compass. This is why the loop feels wrong in the first place, because something in you is ready to become the author again, not a rebel, an author. And here's the good news. You don't need to destroy your life to become the author again. You don't have to burn everything down. The loop doesn't break through drama, it breaks through a shift from automatic living to conscious living. That's what we're going into next. Most people don't stay in the loop because they want to. They stay because they don't recognize it for what it is. The loop doesn't feel like a prison, it feels like normal life. Bills, schedules, responsibilities, routines. Nothing about it looks dangerous. And that's exactly why it works. The most effective traps aren't painful enough to flee, they're comfortable enough to tolerate. People don't resist the loop, they normalize it. One of the strongest forces keeping people in the loop is comfort, not luxury, not pleasure, familiarity. The known discomfort feels safer than the unknown possibility. Even when the loop drains meaning, it provides predictability. And predictability calms fear. The nervous system prefers a familiar pain over an unfamiliar freedom. So people stay, not because they're weak, but because uncertainty feels threatening. Comfort becomes a substitute for aliveness. Another reason people stay in the loop is because their identity is woven into it. Their role, their title, their responsibilities. The loop doesn't just organize time, it tells you who you are. So questioning the loop feels like questioning yourself. And that's terrifying, because if you're not this role, this job, this version of you, then who are you? Most people would rather feel stuck than face an identity vacuum. Then there's distraction. Distraction isn't laziness, it's avoidance. Stillness brings questions. Questions about meaning, direction, truth. So the loop fills every gap. Noise, screens, schedules, endless input. Not because people love distraction, but because they fear what silence might reveal. A distracted life never asks where it's going. Another force holding people in the loop is measurement. Modern life teaches you to measure everything: income, status, productivity, output. But meaning doesn't register on spreadsheets. So people chase metrics that never satisfy them. They hit goals and feel nothing because achievement without alignment feels strangely empty. The loop persists because success is measured externally while dissatisfaction is felt internally. Many people stay in the loop because of a quiet thought. It could be worse. And they're right. But that thought becomes a cage when it replaces honest evaluation. Gratitude is powerful. But gratitude used to suppress truth turns into self-abandonment. You're allowed to be thankful and still want something deeper. The loop survives when people confuse survival with fulfillment. At the deepest level, most people don't escape the loop because escaping it requires authorship. And authorship is responsibility. It means you can't blame the system anymore, or the schedule, or circumstances. It means your life becomes yours. And that's heavier than it sounds. The loop offers something seductive: an excuse. If your life is on autopilot, you're not responsible for its direction. Authorship removes that shield, so people delay it. Not forever, just until later. So if you've been in the loop for a long time, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you adapted, you survived, you learned how to function. But now, something deeper is asking to be acknowledged. The loop only holds people until awareness catches up, and awareness is already present, or you wouldn't be here. The loop doesn't end because you force your way out. It ends because you understand it. And the moment you understand why people stay trapped, without judgment, you stop fighting yourself. That's where real change becomes possible. And that's where we're going next. When people imagine escaping the loop, they imagine a dramatic moment, a decision, a declaration, a sudden change. But that's not how the loop actually breaks. It doesn't break loudly, it breaks quietly, often so quietly that at first you're not even sure anything happened. There's no announcement, no applause, no external confirmation, just a subtle shift inside you, a pause where there used to be momentum. Most people try to break the loop by force. They push, they motivate, they pressure themselves into action, but the loop isn't maintained by weakness, it's maintained by unconsciousness, so effort doesn't dissolve it, clarity does. The moment you clearly see what you've been repeating and why, the loop loses its grip. Not because you escaped it, but because you're no longer inside it unconsciously. The first real break in the loop doesn't show up as a new behavior. It shows up as a new relationship to your behavior. You still go to work, you still handle responsibilities, you still move through your day, but something is different. You're watching yourself do it. You're no longer fused with the motion. That separation, that witnessing is the crack. That's where freedom enters. This moment doesn't feel exciting. It feels unfamiliar, sometimes uncomfortable, because for the first time you're no longer being carried by habit, you're present. And presence feels unstable at first. The loop gave you momentum, presence gives you responsibility. And responsibility feels heavy until it becomes natural. This is why many people miss the moment the loop breaks. They're expecting relief. What they get is stillness. The loop is maintained by automatic agreement. Agreement to expectations, agreement to routines, agreement to identities you never consciously chose. The moment the loop breaks is the moment you stop automatically agreeing, not externally. Internally, you don't argue, you don't rebel, you simply notice, I don't have to move right now. That realization changes everything because choice re-enters the system. This is important to understand. You don't defeat the loop, you outgrow it, it dissolves when it's no longer needed. The loop existed to carry you when awareness wasn't online. Now awareness is present, so the structure loosens. No fight required, just honesty. You can't manufacture this moment, you can't rush it. It arrives when awareness has accumulated enough honesty, enough questioning, enough friction, enough quiet recognition. That's why it often appears after long periods of repetition. The loop wears itself thin, and suddenly you're awake inside it. That's the break. The loop doesn't break so you can escape your life. It breaks so you can finally participate consciously. And once that happens, a new question appears. If I'm no longer living automatically, how do I live deliberately? That's what comes next. When people finally realize they've been living automatically, their first instinct is to do something, to fix it, to optimize, to overhaul their life. But automatic living isn't caused by inactivity, it's caused by unexamined momentum. So adding more effort doesn't free you, it tightens the loop. The solution isn't to move faster, it's to become conscious of movement itself. That's the shift from automatic to conscious. Automatic living feels like this. You respond before you choose. You agree before you consider. You move because it's expected. Conscious living feels very different. You pause internally. You notice what's pulling you. You choose deliberately, even if the choice is small. The difference isn't external behavior, it's orientation. Automatic living asks, what's next? Conscious living asks, what's true right now? That question changes everything. The first phase of conscious living is interruption. Not interruption of your schedule, but interruption of your assumptions. Automatic living relies on speed. It survives because nothing questions it. So the first act of sovereignty is simple. Pause internally, not to analyze, not to decide, just to notice. Notice when you're saying yes automatically. Notice when you're rushing without knowing why. Notice when your body tightens before your mind reacts. That pause is not passive, it's powerful, because momentum cannot survive awareness. This pause often feels uncomfortable at first, because automatic living carries you. When you interrupt it, you feel exposed. There's no script telling you what to do next. And that can feel unsettling. But discomfort here is not danger, it's recalibration. Your nervous system is adjusting from reaction to presence. This is why so many people rush past the pause. They mistake unfamiliar stillness for failure, but this is the doorway. Once interruption becomes familiar, the second phase begins naturally. Reorientation. This is where you choose what guides you, not society's expectations, not old identities, not fear of judgment, but an internal reference point, a quiet question. What feels aligned right now? Not what looks impressive, not what keeps you safe, not what keeps you liked. Alignment doesn't shout, it registers as relief, as truth without drama. This is the beginning of authorship. The third phase is not transformation, it's one conscious choice. Not a big one, not a risky one, a real one, a boundary you didn't set before. A pause you didn't allow before. A no where there was always a yes. The loop doesn't break through dramatic action, it weakens through consistency of authorship. One conscious choice changes your relationship to time, because now your life is no longer running you. Here's what surprises most people. Conscious living doesn't feel euphoric. It feels real, quieter, slower, more grounded. You're less reactive, less rushed, less interested in proving anything, but more present. This is how the loop stays broken, not through intensity, through presence. This approach lasts because it doesn't depend on circumstances. You don't need a new job, or a new identity, or a new life. You need a new relationship to choice. Automatic living collapses under awareness, and awareness, once integrated, doesn't disappear. This is how you reclaim sovereignty without destroying your life. The loop doesn't break all at once, it dissolves as conscious living becomes familiar. And once that happens, your life no longer feels like a loop, it feels like a path. That's where we'll leave it. This is the point where we slow everything down, not because there's nothing more to say, but because what's already been said needs space. Understanding happens quickly. Integration does not. Integration happens when the nervous system feels safe enough to let insight settle. So if you feel the urge to move on, to do something, to apply this immediately, that's a familiar reflex, so you don't need to follow it. You don't need to remember everything we've covered. You don't need to summarize it. If something resonated, it's already working on you. Awareness doesn't require effort. It unfolds, often in the background, often without language. This is why reflection matters, not analysis, not problem solving, just noticing what feels different. At this stage, answers are less important than questions, not questions you need to solve, questions that gently stay with you. Questions like, where does my life feel automatic? Where does it feel alive? Where have I been moving without choosing? You don't need conclusions. Questions reshape attention, and attention reshapes experience. You don't need to change anything today. That may feel counterintuitive. But real shifts don't begin with action. They begin with orientation. Once your orientation changes, your choices follow naturally. Trying to force change now will pull you back into automatic behavior. Let this settle instead. Presence matures on its own. Integration often shows up quietly. You pause before responding. You feel less urgency. You notice when you're rushing. These are not small things. They are signs that the loop is no longer running unchecked. The goal was never to escape your life. It was to inhabit it consciously. And that's already happening. So before we move toward closing this transmission, let this question sit with you, not as something to answer, but as something to notice over time. Where in my life am I already more conscious than I was before? You don't need to search. You'll recognize it. Before you go, leave this video with this thought. A loop only holds you as long as you move through it unconsciously. The moment you choose, it breaks. Carry that with you. I'll see you in the next transmission.